Hey there, everybody. Good evening to all of you. Thank you so much for jumping online with us tonight in this incredible space. You may have tuned in with us already this week for our kids' worship experience or our prayer time, but y'all, what a crazy week. And this has emerged out of nowhere in our church office. And by out of nowhere, I mean the two guys sitting behind the screen tonight, Lee and James, put together a studio in our office because here's the deal. We are in uncharted territory, in crazy world, but we are determined as a church family to stick together. And so this is crazy, y'all. This is just so strange and unusual, and I want to acknowledge that right now. Your faces are in my mind, but I'm talking to a camera, and it just isn't the same. And can I, for just a minute, acknowledge together with all of you that this is strange, this is unusual, this is discomforting, this is all kinds of weird right now. And I know that people are in a lot of difficult spaces. And I want to start us tonight in prayer. And before I do that, I just want to name some of those difficult places if I can. I know that some of you are joining on here tonight, and you're already feeling a lot of the anxiety and fear that maybe comes with job that you've already lost or income that you've already lost, and the uncertainty of what the coming days and weeks look like. I know one of the ones that we talked about on Sunday was we have a lot of families in our church community that are military, and so people that were supposed to be coming home from deployment are no longer coming home on schedule. One of the ones that came to my attention today was people who are having babies right now, and you thought you were going to have a support system that was going to be around you, and now a lot of those same people can't be with you or can't be with you in the same way they were going to. Some of you have a senior in your house, or maybe you are a senior in college or high school, and your prom has been canceled and your graduations have been postponed, and y'all, that's tough. And I am so sorry. I am so sorry that we are finding ourselves in this space. I feel like I've used the word unprecedented so many times this week. And I want you to know too that I've had my moments this week that weren't my best moments, where I had to feel all of what this week has felt like. Moments when I found myself at my kitchen table letting out some of the emotion that this week has brought. But here's what I want to tell you tonight, that on the other side of that emotion, on the other side of the frustration and the anxiety and just the anger even at where we are, what I have found on the other side is that God loves us enough that he wants us to bring him all of those things. That God's okay with everything that we need to throw at him right now. He can take all of it. In fact, he says, bring it. Cast your cares on me because I got them. And I've got you. And so for all of you tuning in tonight, whatever that looks like for you, wherever today has brought you, I want you to know that you can bring all of that to God. God's got wide open arms and the ability to absorb all that we have. And so as we begin this time together tonight, will you join me in a time of prayer? God, thank you that you're always with us. When Jonah was in the belly of the whale, the fish, when Abraham was out there wondering what he was supposed to do with the son that you told him to sacrifice, God, when your people were wandering in the desert, we have just so much history that tells us you're a God that walks with us and pulls through. And God, I know I can tell those stories from my life, and I know that so many of us have those stories. And God, I pray that in a time like we're in right now, that we would bring all of those stories to mind, all of those reminders of what a faithful God you are. God, I thank you that you know every circumstance tonight. I thank you that you know every hurt and frustration and point of anger. I know that you know every anxiety and fear that's on our hearts and in our minds. And God, we want to offer those to you. We want to trust you in this space with our lives and with our families. And so God, as we gather tonight in a very different way as a church family, I simply ask that in a way that only your Spirit can, that you would tie us together, that you would bring us together despite physical distance and social distance and all the distance we're supposed to have right now. Would you tie our hearts and our lives together as your people who are coming to you saying, you're our Father, we trust you with everything, and we want to continue to seek you even in moments like this, trusting that you have something to show us. God, would you show us? Would you do a miracle right in front of us in the coming days? God, we are praying for those who are sick right now to be healed. We're praying for a virus that feels like it is all kinds of alive to be dead. God, we are praying for what only you can do in this space. Would you walk with us, and would you help us to hear you and to feel you and to know you right now? It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. Well, y'all, we set up this series of family meetings after what was easily 7, 8, 9 months of preparation and planning and research and all kinds of buildup to our next steps as Ashley Ridge Church. We've been talking for 10 years now as a church family about the fact that we knew that God has called us to be his church, to be a church family and a church community out in this new part of Summerville, and that the time has been coming for some time now for us to build a permanent home. And so we have been planning and preparing and setting up these family meetings with the idea that we were going to be able to share with everybody exactly what this looked like. I sent out letters at the beginning of March giving everybody the one-page rundown of what this all looked like. And then the idea behind these gatherings is that I could share a little bit more, add in some details, and then let you ask some questions. And so here we are. Only everything changed. Everything in our world has changed in a week. And so I want to go ahead and put that out there for you tonight. And I know some of you might be on here tonight and you already came to a family meeting last week. And the reason I asked you to join us again tonight, if you could, is because things have changed even since last week. And so I am going to still tonight talk through the plan, talk through everything that we have put together and what it's going to look like for us as a church to move to a building. But before I can do any of that, I need to fully and completely acknowledge that we are now in different circumstances than we were a week ago. And so as I share all these plans, I need to share them with you, knowing that just like our school schedules and our life schedules and everything else, everything is kind of subject to change right now. We're all rolling with things and trying to understand things the best that we can. One thing that I know for certain is that it becomes crystal clear in moments like these just how important it is for the church to be the church. And for the church to be the church, I am not talking in any kind of way about a building. For the church to be the church, we need to be the hands and the feet of Christ. We need to be people who are out there sharing hope because we've got it. We need to be people who are out there doing all we can to meet people who are in the most vulnerable positions. Now, that's gotten really tricky right now in this place that we're in. We've been continuing to run our food truck. Even tonight, we took the truck over to the Seacoast parking lot where we are on Thursday nights. We didn't hand out a prepared meal like we normally would, but we did hand out rice and beans and some food that we had. We've been in touch all week long with different food banks and food sources in our areas, trying to not empty grocery stores where everybody's trying to go and get the supplies they need. We didn't feel like it would be responsible to go and empty those shelves, but we've been in touch with food banks that have had to close their doors to see if we could get access to food that we could then take and drop off in the safest ways possible to those that really need it. And so I want you to know that you guys have been responding to those calls and showing up where we needed you. And a lot of times we haven't been able to use all the people that were willing to jump in. But this is what I mean when I say the church being the church. It has always been throughout time the church that rushes in to places of need, that fills gaps, that figures out whatever has to be done and we do it because that's what Jesus showed us how to do. And so in moments like these, that is clearly our focus. We've been on the phone trying to check on people in our community who are the most at risk, checking in with people who've had surgery this week and procedures that have put them in difficult places. And y'all, we're just trying to pray and to meet needs wherever we find them. And I want to thank all of you that I know are also out there doing that. And so again, it is so important that the church be the church. We are the embodiment of the hope that Jesus left in this world. I mean, Jesus said, I'm not leaving you. I'm going somewhere else. You're not going to see me in the same way, but I'm going to send you a helper, a comforter, and then you are going to go with that helper and do even greater things. And right now in moments like these, y'all, it's when we get to show up. And I have just been blown away watching that happen in the last several days. But all of that is behind the reason that I so very much believe in the work of our church now and also the work of our church going forward into the future, which is why I'm still going to take the time tonight while we're in our homes, while so many things are unknown, and I'm still going to talk about what it looks like for Ashley Ridge to move into the future together, to build a permanent home in Summers Corner, to build what will be a home base for our ministry so that the work of the church can continue for years and years to come. Now, a lot of what I have to talk about is financial. And again, I want to tell all of you, and I want you to hear this clearly, I know where we are. And I want you to know that I'm in it with you. My family, your family, we're all walking in some uncertain, uncomfortable territory right now, and especially as it regards finances. And so I need you to hear me tonight that I am not trying to talk about money in a way that is meant to guilt you or shame you or in any way suggest that this is what it's about. But it is important to talk about how we continue as a church and what that looks like when we do it together. And so, all that being said, I am going to walk through the plan as it exists. I'm going to ask you to give me a whole lot of grace for the moving pieces and the points of clarity that may even come up along the way. And for those of you who may be tuning in that did already attend a family meeting, I want to go ahead and up front give you the shifts, the things that we already know are going to change. So this Sunday is the start of our building surge process, and that is going to continue. Even though we're entirely online, we've created an online version of the commitment card so that you can grab that link. If you're on the live feed tonight, we'll be posting it in some other places, but you can fill out a commitment card to the surge and send it in. That will come directly to our giving email, and we'll be able to communicate with you about that from there. And so I want to let you know that. And we are going to go ahead and start the surge knowing that the circumstances have changed. But we also know that some people have already done things, moved things, been prepared for this process. And so we are going to go ahead and open up an opportunity for you to start giving directly to our building process. However, what we know is that we will likely need to extend our building surge past the end of May. And that's going to be something that we're just going to have to see how long this crisis lasts. We are in a health crisis, and I've got all kinds of hope that even the malaria pill that they're talking about today that is being shown to go do some good things. I don't know. There's lots of tests, and I'm not a scientist, but I am just a hope person. And so I am already praying that maybe that's the next answer that we can get immediately into people's hands, and this will be finished much sooner than we think. We just don't know. And so the surge that we have told you is going to be March 22nd to May 31st. We already know very likely that's probably going to extend. But we're just going to see what happens in the weeks to come. The other change that I want to tell you about, and again, if this is all still new and you're going, I don't know what the word she's using yet, I am going to explain it a little bit more. But The other thing that I want to tell you is that because we are in uncharted territory, it is really important for us as a church to keep in mind what it takes for us to continue operating as a church. And so one of the things that we're doing with this surge is giving people the opportunity to give directly to our building process. But knowing that we are in a different space and a different time, one of the things that we need to do is go ahead and set an upfront number, if you will, of what it takes for us to do what we do as Ashley Ridge Church right now. Run our food truck, do our kids ministry, meet with students, do those kinds of things. And so even as we enter this surge, what we're going to be looking at is the first $50,000 every month that is given to our church is going to have to go to our operating budget. We've frozen our budget for this year and next year at $600,000 so that we can surge toward a building and use everything beyond that, which we did receive beyond that even last year. So in freezing our budget there, we were creating ample room for a movement toward our building. But what we need to do in that is make sure that we've got that $50,000 every month that allows us to keep doing what we're doing as a church, allows us to keep showing up and serving and being the family that God has asked us to be in Summerville. And so those are the two shifts in how we're approaching this surge and this move in the midst of the season that we're in. Okay, so now all of those things said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to walk you through the plan that we made before the last week happened. And so again, just offer me the grace of knowing I'm sharing this with you and also acknowledging that things are changing as we go. But we did, over the last many months, put together a plan for Ashley Ridge Church to be able to build a house so that Summerville can have a home. And the reason that we've been moving so intently toward this is really three reasons. The first of which is that we can't stay in the high school. We're not in the high school right now, so that's really clear that we can't stay in the high school. But beyond the circumstance that we're currently in, we can't stay in the high school. And when I say that, here's what I mean by that. We have a great relationship with Ashley Ridge High School. We are so incredibly grateful for Karen Radcliffe and her whole team at Ashley Ridge. They are all-stars. Part of our 21-day fast, we've been praying for our schools, but we've also been praying specifically for Ashley Ridge. And there is such a partnership there, and I'm so grateful for that space. But Dorchester District 2 actually has a policy where outside entities are only supposed to use their space for 3 years. And so here we are past year 10, which means we're 7 years into a grace period. And the reason they've extended that grace period to us is because we have built a really good partnership. We've been really good teammates. We've been able to serve the school really well and take care of the space that we're in. The other reason they've allowed us to stay is because we've been able to show them concrete movement forward. It was really important in 2017 when we closed on our land that we were able to share that with them so they could see that we weren't intending to stay there permanently. They could see our movement forward. And they knew, just like we did, that when we started in 2010, the neighborhood we were heading toward got way pushed back by the recession in 2008. Just as another note of hope, we've been in recession before. And y'all, there's hope on the other side. And so some of those things are really good to remember right now. So when we started as a church, the community that was being planned for the Summers Corner area was already at that point starting to move several years behind their planning. And so the school knew that, we knew that, and they've given us lots of grace to stay in the school and continue that partnership. But we can't stay there. The district won't allow us to stay there, and we know that. And I just want to make sure y'all understand that there's no kind of imminent threat. However, we know that we're on borrowed time. The second thing is not only that we can't stay there, but that we need a place. we need a place that we've been talking about this a lot in the last few weeks. We need a place for people to come. Again, not now while we're socially distancing, but this isn't always going to be what is. And we all know that. Goodness, I cannot wait for the next time that we can worship together in person. I'm already getting a little jittery thinking about it, and we're not even a week out. But y'all, this is not where we're always going to be. And we need a place. Now, there's some things in particular I think about when I say that we need a place, and one of them is our kids. We have a sensational kids ministry. I mean, a kids ministry that just week after week is knocking it out of the ballpark, creating space for these kids to hear that they are loved by God and known by God and saved by God. And it is amazing to watch our kids come out of these environments on Sunday morning with all that they've learned and all that they've experienced, and all that is just starting to be planted and rooted deep down in their lives. And we all know how important that is for those truths and that identity just to be rooted deeply down in them. But in the space where we are, we work really hard to create environments where our kids are safe and can do all these kind of things, but we work really hard to do it. And it continues to get harder as we continue to grow, which is an incredible, incredible thing. But the safety of our kids, the ability for our kids to grow is so essential to us. And we're not going to be able to continue doing that at the high school. So we need a place. We need a place for these kids to come and to grow and to thrive in these safe environments with these incredible volunteers, many of you who show up and get down on your knees on the floor and interact with them to explain these truths of God's love. And so that's really important to us. One of the ones that weighs really heavy for me is our student ministry. In the course of our 10 years as Ashley Ridge Church, our student ministry has met in a lot of different places, including my old house, the Williams old house, the Williams new house. We had a place for a little while on Ladson Road, and then that building was sold and they wanted to use the whole thing and we couldn't stay there. And then we moved to an office on Bacon's Bridge that we never intended to be student space, because when we moved here, we were going to move our students to the Y out at the ponds, and for a lot of reasons that just never fully clicked. They wanted us there, we wanted to be there, but things kept overlapping and events never fully happened, and so it just didn't work out as well as we ever wanted it to. And so our students currently meet in this office where I'm sitting right now, where there simply isn't room, and small groups are close together. And we all know that being a student is one of the trickier times of life, and we have some amazing student volunteers who are investing in the lives of these students, trying to have really good conversations with them, and we simply have not been able to give them the space that they need to thrive in that, and it is a big deal. And so when I talk about the fact that we need a place, students are front and center in my heart and mind of where we're just missing that with all the environments that we have available to us right now. And so our ability to get to a space where these students have a space that is for them, where they can show up, where they can be safe, where they can have these really important conversations and dig through their faith together. And the last one that I'd bring up is our food truck. Our food truck does an amazing job right now working in and out of some small spaces and moving to other kitchen spaces across town to cook and then move food back to here. And then on serving nights, we go around our arms and around our elbows to get to our heads and our noses, and it's all kinds of crazy. And our volunteers do it because they're rock stars and because what happens at the food truck is amazing. But we need a place where we can park that food truck, where we can walk right into prep space and walk in refrigerator space so that we can continue that vital ministry. I'm just gonna be real honest. Right now, that truck is running, and we're going out and we're trying to get packaged goods even this week when we can't actually cook things, but we're limited by not having that kind of space. And so we can see clearly where God is pushing us and how he's equipped us for this season to be ready to create that space together. And that's just going to be a really big deal for us. Now, this one's a little bit funny. The third thing I've been talking about in these family meetings is that now's the time. Y'all. This is where God and I had to sit together on Tuesday. Because everything in me believes, and actually still believes it's true, that God wants us to do these things and to serve these ways in Summerville. I don't understand exactly what's going on right now. I don't understand how it's part of all of it. I don't understand all of how we've been fasting for almost 21 days. Y'all, we're so close. But we've been fasting and getting ready, and none of this makes sense. But my faith tells me that God is not surprised, and he's even going to use this to do something beyond our expectation and imagination. And what it's reminded me more than anything else is this was never going to happen because of us. Gosh, you're not even in the room, y'all. And I'm here. This was never going to happen because of us. This was always going to be something that God did through us and with us, that he was allowing us to be a part of. And everything in me tells me that this is our moment to simply be faithful and let God show us what we couldn't see on our own. And so, y'all, I'm inviting you into that walk together. And we're going to see a victory. We're going to see a victory in the days and the weeks to come. And so, here's what that plan that we were working on looked like. The first piece of it, as I was talking about earlier, is a building surge. We need to make an initial surge here. And again, whether that happens in the next 3 months or whether it takes us a little bit longer, the next step for us in this process is to make a surge forward that's going to do 3 things. First, we're going to need to pay off our land. We bought 10 acres in 2017 for $450,000, which is unreal, and another sign of God's favor in this whole process, because Publix bought 10 acres in Summers Corner for 6 times that amount last year, 2 years ago. And so we were walking that road for a long time, and God gave us an incredibly ideal piece of property at a great rate. And so we bought that 10 acres for $450,000. We've paid about $170,000 of that, and we have about $280,000 left. And just so you know where that number comes from, again, because interest changes every day and all these things change every day. But as of February 3rd, we owed $282,868.02. And so we've made 2 more mortgage payments since then. Every month since the end of 2017, we've paid around $2,600 a month in our mortgage payment, our loan payment on that. The last big movement we made was at the Christmas offering this past year, when we put that all towards this land and getting that paid for. Y'all gave over $41,000. And so in January, we moved that money into a building land account. And then we took $30,000 of that and we took it over and we put it on the principal so we could start to knock down some of the interest. And then the rest of the money in that account is what we've used the last couple of months to continue to pay the next payments on that land. And so we have $280,000 left to pay for our land. That's really important, because what paying for our land and finishing that payment will allow us to do is A, burn the note, which is going to be fun and dramatic, because I like fun and dramatic, and who doesn't need a little fun and dramatic right now? We get to do that, but more importantly, it sets us up to start moving the dirt on the land. It also sets us up for getting the building loan to put the building on the land, because that property is already worth more than we paid for it, and where it is, the biggest piece, the fundamental piece in us being able to get the building loan is having this asset, this piece of land that we have paid for. And so the initial thing we're doing is a surge that says we've got to get $280,000 to pay for this land, and then we need the next $100,000 that creates a reserve fund for us to be used for construction expenses. That's important because we have a $600,000 operating budget. That's frozen. That's what we use to do everything else that we do in the course of the year. But then above and beyond that, we're going to start we're going to start needing to do some things on the land. We're going to need to start dealing with some land prep and moving dirt. And we're in the low country, so it's going to take a lot of dirt that we're going to have to move from here to there. If you've got it in your backyard, we'll take it. But we've got to start doing some of those things that will cost money, and it's money that we're going to need to pull above and beyond our operating budget. And so we're trying to get that $100,000 there so that we can then engage the process, knowing that we have the resources to be in it. And then the last $20,000 that gets us to the $400,000 number we've been putting out there for our building surge is money to bring our architects back to the table. Now, if you know anything about construction, $20,000 is not nearly enough to pay architects for a project like this. It is, however, a starting number for us to be able to start working again with the architects to move from conceptual documents to building documents. So those are our next steps. And the idea behind this surge is that we, as Ashley Ridge, have always functioned as a one-fund church, which means we all give and it all goes to the same place, and then we use it as we need it. And so we haven't had any designated funds. But what we know is that buildings simply cost more than everything else. And so we need to be able to make a concentrated effort on getting toward this building. And so the idea behind the surge is that we are creating an opportunity, and again, now in the season that we're in, to say above and beyond the $50,000 we need every month to just do what we do, we're going to surge forward and put everything else toward this building. We're giving everybody the opportunity to give to the operating fund, but to also give above and beyond to our building process. And again, I know we're in crazy times, so y'all just hear me. I know things look different now than they did a week ago, but this is something that we're going to do together, and this is something that even in these times is incredibly doable, and here's why. This piece of the puzzle is not a stretch for the size and who we are as a church. Now, the reason I say that is because in a very short window in December, I told everyone that we could give above and beyond to a land payment. And as a church, in a very short window, we gave $41,000. And then just in the last few weeks, between the staff and the leadership team and the financial team and our building team, we did some early commitments toward this process. And just with 21 families, we have another $40,000 above and beyond ready to go to this surge. And so in a very short window, there's $81,000, okay? And so as a church, we've been down this road for a while, and we know what we can do together. And so this $400,000 is really something that's very much within our reach, and the invitation is simply that we all jump in and do what we can. And so again, I'm not trying to push, and I know that the circumstance that we're in, but it's an opportunity for all of us to do what we can, and together, because it's better that way, it's who we are, even though right now we're virtually better together, together it's something that we can do. And so that's what the surge looks like. All right, so that's the first piece of the puzzle, and that's the immediate piece of the puzzle that takes us to the next place. Once we do that, once we finish and have that $400,000, we are a matter of months away from being able to get the architectural work done, being able to work on the land prep, and getting a shovel into the ground, okay? And so again, a week ago, I would have told you we want to get a shovel in the ground as early as possible in 2021, and I don't know what that timeline looks like, but I am believing for what God's going to do. We don't know what the next few months look like, but we know that we are sitting on the next piece, and we know exactly what it looks like, and that's what it'll be. So that's what's in front of us. And so once we start that process, now we're in kind of a 3-year trajectory where, and I think we've got a chart, and I'm probably all kinds of out of line over here, but here's a chart. Okay, so this is a better picture of kind of the next 3 years. So this is kind of this, here's this surge moment, but then we're looking at this ongoing stretch over the next 3 years where the math behind the stretch is that if just the people who are currently giving to our church started stretching just a little bit year over year. And the number that we came up with that is if just the people who are currently giving, and just so you know, right now that's less than half of the families that are part of our church, and that's average for churches. And so one of our hopes in this is that we can get everybody on board and participating and pulling on the rope together, because man, that will just move us so much farther and so much faster. But if just the people who are currently giving in our church would start to stretch just a little bit, and by a little bit what I mean is if you gave to Ashley Ridge in 2019, if you figure out what 10% of what you gave in 2019 was, and then you give that much more in 2020, and then in 2020, you take 10% of that and you give more. So I'm not saying if you gave 10% of your income in 2019, then you should give 20% of your total income in 2020. However, if you'd like to, I'm all for it. Go you. But that's not what I'm saying. So I want to be really clear about that. And so here we worked it out with some of the numbers. If say you gave $3,600 in 2019, then adding up 10% more really becomes $30 more every month in 2020. Okay, so that's what we mean by just taking those incremental stretches together. And what I really want you to hear me say too is that nothing given is inconsequential. Again, when we do this together, we get to go a really long way. And so I don't want anyone to think, okay, you know what, stock market tanked, and believe me, I know it. I'm married to a financial advisor. I'm hearing about it, y'all. I know it. So you might be thinking, that's crazy. And so, I got $50 maybe that I could give. You know what? That matters. That matters. And that ain't nothing, y'all. And so again, what we can do to be the church that shows up in these scenarios is huge. And so the invitation is let's do what we can together. Let's find the moments where we can stretch and let God show us how really good he is at multiplication. Because y'all, there's an opportunity in this that we do get to let our faith grow, because God is going to do something more with what we give. And so I have just seen that again and again in my own life, that God really does grow our faith as we trust him, even just that little bit at a time, because every time he comes around on the backside and is like, watch me. I've never missed a dollar that I've given. I've wasted plenty of dollars that I've wished I had back, but never have I missed many that I've been able to give to do those kinds of things. And so again, I'm inviting us all to trust God in this process and simply see what he can do with us together. And so that's what that stretch looks like over 3 years. And here's where the numbers come from in that as well. Some of you are more numbers people than others, and so bear with me. But right now we have an operating budget of $600,000. Once we build our space and move into our new space, hopefully late 2021, beginning 2022, as early as possible, that we would move into this incredible space that we're going to get to use for this ministry, then we're going to need to be at about an $800,000 operating budget that allows us to cover the debt service and the mortgage payment. But going from 600 to 800, if we simply stretch as we are right now and continue to grow, is incredibly doable. That's just such an easy reach over the next 3 years that I think we're actually going to stretch way beyond that. But I really want to show you all just some of the mechanics of this is what we're talking about when we're saying we have a plan for how to get to our building based on who we are, the numbers we have, and how all of that plays out. The third piece that I sent out to you in the letter about all of this, and I promise I'm almost done talking. I'm going to let you ask some questions and go from here. But the third thing we've talked about this is that anytime you take on a project like this, there's just got to be some difference makers. And that doesn't always mean a really big gift, although some people are able to do those kinds of things. But when we talk about difference makers, it's the places where we sit back and go, where can we be creative? Where can we maybe tap tap into something or sell something, or is there something we might have that we weren't thinking about? And that does come back to where you think about legacy gifts or stock gifts, and we can do all those kinds of things. We have a church investment account that we can receive those kinds of things. And so there's different ways. And so we just want to encourage everyone in this season of surging to maybe think beyond the obvious of, how could you and your family be a part of this? Are there people who maybe aren't in our church or maybe even in this community, but they're people who love your people who are in this church and would love to come alongside of us in this season when we're letting people know, hey, you can give a gift directly to our building process because this is where it's going to take us. And so we have some letters and information if you just want to be able to share with people more about what God's doing here at Ashley Ridge, that we can put in your hands for those purposes. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about having difference makers. Okay, so that's the plan. That's a whole lot, but that's kind of the trajectory of where we're heading and the plan that we put together. Now, what God's going to do with it and where we are right now, y'all, this is when I'm just not kidding you when I tell you this church is God's and it's not mine. And I'm just here and grateful to have a front row seat to what he's doing in our midst. We had a young woman who sang with us for the first time on Sunday. She's military. She's currently one of the people who is working, and that's not going to change. And active duty military aren't going anywhere from their posts. But she came up here a few months ago, and as we've been talking about having a place, one of the things she shared with us is that is her story from growing up, is that there came a point in her life where someone made room for her to come sit at a table and hear about the love of God. And because they created a place where she could belong, she found faith in Christ, and it's changed everything for her and for her life. And so not only did you see her up there singing on Sunday, but she's also going to be a high school small group leader for us going into the coming months. And I love that so much. I love that so much as we're trying to talk about what we can create for others. God sends people along the way that are like, oh yeah, let's do it, because somebody already did that for me. That's who we are as a church. That's where God is taking us, and I'm so excited about this process. And so I'm gonna pause here for a minute. I'm gonna have a drink of water, and if you have any questions, and it doesn't have to be directly about the stuff I just talked about, but if you have a question that I can answer, I would love to be able to do that. So if you're on live.ashleyridgechurch.org, and you guys behind the curtain over there, tell me if I'm saying this wrong, but you should see right in that there's a comment feature where you can type in a question, and I'll get that question. So this is like being in a room when it's just crickets and nobody wants to ask the first question. There's not one on the screen, guys. They're pointing to me like there's one on the screen. It's not there. What's the question, y'all? It's not on the screen. But somebody has a question.
The question is from Mike Bloom, and he asks, what's the estimated cost of land prep?
Okay, the estimated cost of land prep, that's a great question, and it's not one that we have an immediate answer to. It is one that we have a team of people that are working on. We have some great people on our building team, people like Matt Halter and Mac Boffman, and I wanted to say this at the beginning, and I'm so sorry, but we are working really hard to adhere to the social distancing rules. We all want this to be over, and so we're trying to behave, and so we have limited to 3 people in this studio room, and so James and Lee and I are the only 3 that are going to be in this space for now, so that we're not adding more people to the mix. And so Garrett Ruber, our finance team leader, and Derek Harez, who's leading our building team, we're both going to be here with me tonight. So if you can picture them sitting here beside me, they're really upset that I told them they couldn't come. They would have shown up anyway because they really want to share all of this with you, but they couldn't be here. But Derek and his team have been working on that. What I can tell you is that a few years ago, we had our contractors give us just some estimates on what it would cost to do the land prep, and we were looking at numbers around 1.2 million, and some of the things that included was the fill dirt. There's a whole lot of fill dirt. Some of the things that included were bringing sewer lines and electric and all that kind of stuff all the way down Summers Drive to where our property is. Now, the good news is, because it has taken longer for us to be ready, is that those things are now in place. And so there's some money that we thought we were going to spend then that we're not going to spend now. And so we're working on getting those estimates right now. And so again, there are some things we're going to have to spend money on. And so that's why we've got this surge on the front end. But even now, we do have people that are out walking that land, giving us some initial estimates, talking back through the work that the civil engineers did for us as part of our due diligence when we bought the land, and trying to figure out what those land prep costs based on our soil samples and the traffic studies and everything else. So that's the best I can give you. But that's a great question, Mike. And that is something that we're factoring in to our total cost. And I don't think I said this yet in this conversation, is that we are talking about building a building that's roughly 25 to 30,000 square feet. And again, that's all going to depend on where we are. That is smaller than what we were talking about building a few years ago, but it's big enough to do what we do right now in terms of worship space, kids space, student space. Some of the student small group rooms will double as office space, and then food truck space. And so those are the pieces that'll fit in that. And we're looking, based on current construction costs and land prep estimates, we're looking at about $5 to $7 million. But when we talk about that number, that does include the land prep. So hopefully that helps. Can you cover the building specs for everyone? Size, open 7 days a week? Yes. Okay. So I think I just hit the size. So that's a really good question. This is where I need y'all to help me. You're all are going to pull all the stuff that I was supposed to say that I didn't say already. And so size-wise, we are talking about that 25 to 30,000 square feet that houses those things. That would include a worship space that would be about 700 seats. And just to give you an idea of that, right now the auditorium space we're in is about 650 seats, but we're going to build something that's built for worship. And what we do, it's actually going to feel a lot more intimate than the space that we're already in, and be designed for what we do. And so all of the square footage will be maximized. And so in that, what we know from our architects is that for every 100 seats in your worship space, for the kind of church and the kind of building that we're building, you're going to need to develop 7 acres of land. So we're talking about developing 7 of the 10 acres we have. And so again, this is pure, so much work to be done here, but we've got another 3 acres we already own. We might be able to pull a lot of fill dirt from that as part of a retention pond that we get to use. We just don't know yet. We got to dig in a little bit more to the soil samples. As far as size and scope and the use, I've talked about our use as a church, but one of the things that we're being really conscious of is we're working on how can we build a space that is useful to and in our community 7 days a week. It's a big deal to us. You see it all over this place behind me on here. See, it's the other way. This is like a green screen. I'm not a weather person, y'all. But we are for Summerville. That's a big deal to us. Some of the questions we've been asking in this process are, what are needs in Summerville that aren't currently being met? One of the big ones is after school care, especially for kids once they get past 5th grade. The school district has talked to us about that. We know as parents that that's a really big deal. And so one of the things and one of the options that we're running down is that something that could work in our building? Are there preschool options? There are uses for our building that would not only provide a needed thing in our community, but also be income sources for us as a church. So right now we pay to rent a school. What would it look like for a school to inhabit some of our space and to be able to rent that from us? Those are just all ways that we can also offset some of the cost and have a building that is incredibly useful in and for Summerville. Ashley Ridge needs a house because Summerville needs a home. So great questions so far, y'all. I know this is a different format, but keep on going. AJ wants to know, are we planning to build in phases or one big build? That is a great question. We are planning to build in phases. So when I describe the things that will be included in 25 to 30,000 square feet, that's phase 1. Okay, so everything I've already described is phase 1. And then the hope would be that we will continue to grow from there as we continue to grow as a church, as we're able to stretch beyond that, as we have more people that are part of the process. We're going to build in such a way that we can add on to our kids space and student space and those kinds of things. There's all kinds of dreams we have for things we could do. I love the idea of having both outdoor and indoor worship space. James might even, he's probably glaring at me. I'm going to not look at him right now over there because he thinks it's hot outside to set up sound equipment. I don't know, but there's all kinds of things that we're dreaming of, but this will be a phased process. But phase 1 will include all those things that I've been talking about. It's a great question. Y'all are doing well. This technological world that we're living in. As they're typing more questions and as y'all are maybe thinking of more questions, I will tell you this. I had a friend who is in the Pacific Northwest where they're, I guess, a little ahead of us, beyond us in terms of the scope of what the coronavirus has done. And as they were working through that anxiety, she was sharing that she didn't realize how much even some of the vocabulary was building anxiety in her, and just that whole idea of social distancing was creating a level of anxiety. And so she was sharing that her counselor told her to not think of it as social distancing, but to think of it as physical distancing. Because the really cool thing is that we have this incredible technology that even though we can't be in the same room together, we can still be incredibly social, and it looks different and it feels different, but at least we are still living life together. And so I've actually been using that a little bit, so feel free. That's a bonus for tonight if that helps you. We are physical distancing. We are not socially distancing, thanks to Facebook and Church Online and FaceTime and all these great things. My oldest had a piano lesson via FaceTime today with his teacher. It was awesome. Totally the distraction he needed, and his teacher was a rock star. Okay, can you talk about why this is more doable now than before? That is a really, really great question, and clearly coming from someone who's been around before, who knows that we have been here in different points. Not exactly here, but we have been at points in our history where we thought, okay, now is the time, and we're going to do this. And one of those clear points was back in 2017 when West Rock was getting ready to sell all of Summers Corner, and so there was an urgency to all that we had been working on in terms of the deal to be able to purchase the land at a very low cost. We had to be able to close at that time period. In order to close with the people who owned it and the way it was set up at the time, we had to be able to show them conceptual drawings and have enough of a plan so that they could approve what we were going to build before they would sell us the land. And so at the time, we thought, okay, so this is our chance, and we're going to go ahead and move forward, and we're going to do all of this at once. But in order to meet the standards that they were trying to create at the beginning of the community, it made it well beyond our reach for the size of the church that we were at the time and what we were able to handle as the size of the church that we were. Those things have changed. Now that development is farther along and it more of it exists, there's a better scope for what it looks like. We have a lot more latitude in what we'll be able to build that we don't have to conform to. We also have more of a church and more people that are doing this together and more history so that we know a little more precisely what we need to do. So when I talk about it being more doable now, we've got more data. We've got more of the right people on board. I know I talked about the fact that Garrett was going to be here tonight as our finance team director, but since he's not sitting here with me, I can brag about him a little bit. But he came on board about 1.5 years ago with our finance team and really helped us start building some better mechanisms from, going from being a church plant and growing up a little bit and really building some better projections and building more models and things behind what we could do and what it was going to take and what those real numbers were. And then when Derek Harris came on board last fall and started doing all the research on building loans and all the specific things that are out there, we were really able to combine those two pieces, build a model and put the numbers together and say, this is what we can do and what is within reach for us as a church. Now, clearly, we need God in all of it. There are nothing worth doing is obvious or easy. And we're stretching to something, but we're not stretching so far that we haven't got the numbers and the information behind it that says this is something we can do as a church right now. I hope that helps. What percentage currently give? And this almost makes me think the finance team is writing these questions. Are y'all cheating back there? Okay, I'm going to answer anyway because y'all are going to like these. They're just grinning over there like Cheshire cats. Okay, what percentage of our church currently gives? It's between 37 and 45% of our church currently gives. So we know how many people give and how many people attend, but obviously families are different sizes. And so when I say that it's in that bubble, that's the percentage of our church that currently gives. How is the financial health of our church? Y'all, I told you I sat with God on Tuesday and we were working through all of my feelings on all of this. And one of the things that God reminded me is that in 10 years of walking into the complete unknown as a church plant and just didn't have any kind of clue about what this would look like, we've seen so much and we've had moments where we just stretched it all and gave it all away. If you saw our 10-year video, you heard me tell some of those stories. We just knew whatever it takes, and so we let out in some of those ways, and there were just moments where we were going, oh my goodness, are we gonna be okay? And at every turn God was faithful. But as we've continued to grow and bring people along and learn how to be just really good stewards with what God has given us and move us into these places, we have never been as financially healthy as we are as a church right now. And when I say that, I mean things like the fact that last year as a church, you gave around $616,000 and some extras. I think it was closer to $617,000 till all was said and done. As a staff and as a leadership team and as operations and decisions were made, we spent about $572,000 last year. And what that means is that we consciously were moving to a place and putting ourselves in a position knowing that this building was coming next. And so we've just been able to be really, really good at that. I'm actually really proud of our teams and the ways that we've over time been able to start building that margin. I know that when we talk about personal finances, we talk about how important margin is, and we all know it, especially in times like this, that we either miss the margin we wish we'd built, or we're grateful for the margin that we have. And as a church, we've been able to build toward that. Now, we do not hoard money. We do not keep it. We use it, and we serve this community, and we serve this community well, which is why I do want to encourage you in the days and the weeks to come to continue to give as you're able to Ashley Ridge Church. We're doing some incredible things, and it's because we continue to give and to trust God with that. But it's actually been really cool to see how God has stepped us along in that and put us in a really healthy place. Okay. Does the community dictate architectural standards, or do we have some flexibility? And that's what I was talking about a little bit a minute ago, in that a few years ago, we were in a process where there were some really strict architectural standards. Some of you remember pictures that we had up in the lobby for a while that were conceptual drawings, and some of you looked at them and went, whoa, that's fancy, and maybe we should not do all that. But a lot of that was because we were working in a system where they really needed a campus feel, and there were certain things that they were requiring of us to be in this community. We are now in much more flexible standards. We have a lot more flexibility in how we build and how that looks and materials that we'll use. And now that's not at all to say that we're trying to just, build a cheap structure and be done with it. Obviously, we want to build something that's going to last into the future, but we have a lot of flexibility to build what we need and what will work for us as a church. And so that's a great, great question. The really cool thing is, too, and keep talking so that y'all can type more questions in. You're doing great, by the way. is that if you drive over there, that front area of Summers Corner where you now have Sandhill Elementary and Rawlings Middle School of the Arts, and now the new Summers Corner Performing Arts Center, which is open. And if you haven't been there yet for production, once it opens again after April 13th, and as soon as possible, you need to go check something out there. It's a really cool space. But that area is up at the front. And then as you drive down Summers Drive, there's Clayfield Trail. And over in Clayfield Trail is where they're building Azalea Ridge. And Azalea Ridge, already in the last 100 and some days, they've sold 100 homes. There's just all kind of homes going up over there. And then our land is here, and then phase 3 will be here. And so we're just right in the middle of that. Okay, there's another question. Seeing what, y'all, this is really cool. This is what you can't see is not only as they get these questions, they're going up on the screen, and then if I keep talking and am not paying attention, they flash it green at me. So that's what you can't see that I'm letting you in on. Seeing what Publix paid, are there options to reevaluate the land we have to possibly sell and apply the equity to a different location? That is a good question, and that is something that we have just constantly looked for in the last several years. We are constantly looking at what's out there, what's available, what might be a better option. Would this be an opportunity to sell? And as we run those leads down, there just isn't a better spot for us to be. That's just become clearer and clearer as more of that community has developed, and there really isn't another space for us to be that we could get at any kind of price that would equate. And so, I mean, we've even looked into things like some of the bylaws that have gone empty in the last few years, and those are just a lot more expensive than just what it would cost us to be in them a month before we even started to do any renovation to make it work for us is exponentially more than what we're talking about in building. And so it's a really good question. It's not one that we're going to stop paying attention to, but we really have consistently looked down those leads and run down all the different land costs in those areas. And every single time we end up back on this pace of this is the best spot for us to be and the best opportunity that we have. It's a great question. How will we know where we are? Updates, tracking. Can we have a thermometer in the lobby? Now you're just messing with me, James. Someone might have asked. We've been joking about the fact that we weren't going to have a thermometer in the lobby, but we were going to put up a really big chart so that every Sunday when you walked in during the surge, you would automatically be able to see where we are. Okay, so here's the beauty of technology. We're not going to be in the lobby for a few weeks. We're hoping soon, but COVID-19. So we're not going to be in the lobby. However, we have built a really cool mechanism. Y'all, our IT department and our creative department and our graphics department, they're just killing it. And all of those departments are James Galloway. And he's just crushing it along with his sidekick Lee Ayers, who's just all over there doing all this stuff. But we have created a spot on our website. You can go directly to forsvl.com.org. ForSummerville.com, or you can go to our Ashley Ridge website, hit the For Summerville 4SVL link, and there is a spot on that webpage that says building updates. Now, here's what's really cool, is that not only are we going to keep updating, and we've got a mechanism where we can keep putting updates, and they're going to stay on there, kind of like blog posts, and we're numbering them so that you'll be able to see. If you go there right now, there's building update 001 and building update 002. Tomorrow, there will be building update 003. So we're putting those building updates up there. Okay, they're giving me the correct addresses so I don't mess y'all up. forsvl.com or forsummerville.com, or you can go directly to the app and it'll link you to here. But when you go to that page, not only are those updates there, and we're going to keep updating exactly where we are, what's happening next, what's happening with the land prep, how much money do we have in the surge, what's going on. But there's also a spot where you can put your name and your email address and hit subscribe. And when you do that, every time we post one of those building updates, it'll come directly to your email. So you won't have to remember to go to another place, which none of us ever do. But if you just go there once and put your name and email address in there, then those building updates will come directly to you. So once we are back in the high school and meeting, we'll have those things out there so that you can just see them when you walk through the doors, but they'll also be very consistently on all of our social platforms and being sent out in emails. So that's a really good question. Can we... Can we have the same? Now you know they're messing with me. No, James is saying no. So here's the question, y'all. You'll see why I'm laughing at him. Can we have the same awesome worship team play in the new building? Yes. In fact, we can. Y'all, we really do have such a phenomenal worship team. And you've probably noticed in the last couple weeks, there's some new faces that have been up there, some awesome people. There's a guitar player named Seth. He and his wife, Deanne, have been worshiping with us. Deanne's a labor and delivery nurse. She's one of the many who are right now in the hospitals. Y'all, healthcare workers, we're so grateful for you. We're praying for your endurance in the days and weeks to come. But yeah, no, we have an incredible worship team. And if you have ever thought about being part of the worship team and would be interested, then James would love to talk to you more about that. But we love to worship at Ashley Ridge. All right, y'all, you're doing great. And thank you for hanging with me if you've been on here. This is definitely past my bedtime, and it might be past yours. Our hope was that it was past your kids' bedtimes, that some of you could put kids to bed and be able to join us. Or maybe because there's not school, maybe your kids are up and they're on here. And I want you to know that's awesome because we're building you a building, and it's gonna be incredible. So, any other questions? All right. Y'all, thank you so much for joining me on here tonight. Thank you for allowing me the privilege of being in your lives with you. Thank you for sticking together in this season and loving each other well. You guys blow me away with how incredible you are. I know there's small group leaders out there. You're checking on your people. There's AR Kids leaders that are just trying to do all kinds of cool things. Our AR Kids team is putting together more worship resources that we're going to be able to send fun videos to have in your house to sing and dance and remember who we are in the days and weeks to come. And so, y'all, thank you so much. I want to remind you that tomorrow night is going to be our first online AR Students experience. That's going to be at 6 p.m. right here on the same channel, live.ashleyridgechurch.org. You're going to be able to jump on here, and Lee will have some thoughts and share some things. And then Sunday morning, we will be on here for worship at 10 a.m., and I hope you'll join us. And because we've been talking about, and today, even as we draw to the end of this 21-day fast, today, and all of these were preset, y'all, months ago. Today was generosity, and it's how can we be generous with what God has given us? How can we be about God's work in this world? And it happens in big ways and small ways. It happens with all the public spread that got delivered here again at the end of the day today to be handed out on our truck. Generosity is when we look out beyond ourselves. And so guys, thank you so much for what you do, give, and the ways that you participate in Ashley Ridge. We are in an unusual setting in the weeks to come. And so if you've never given online, I want to invite you to do that. If you need any help, just send us a message at info@ashleyridgechurch.org. We would love to help you get connected. If you normally would give in person, you can mail. If you don't want to do the online giving or the text giving, you can certainly mail that in as well to P.O. Box 51846, Summerville, SC 29485 is our mail address, and you can continue to give that way. But y'all, thanks for what you do to support our church and allow us to be the hands and feet in this community for such a time as this. It really is such a big deal. So thank y'all so much for being part of this conversation tonight. And if you have more questions, don't be afraid to send those over email. And you can send it in via Connect card on the app, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks so much. I love y'all.